Hi, my name's Becky. Tell me, do your parents often call you? Do they want to know where you are and when you'll return home? Well, my mom never calls me. And not because she kinda trusts me or knows exactly where I am, but because she just doesn't remember she even has a daughter. When I was born, my mom was only 19, and my dad was 32. Yeah, quite a big age difference. Besides, my dad was a teacher at the college where my mom studied. After school, my mom studied law. It wasn't easy to get there, but she was the best student in school and she always studied really hard, so she successfully coped with the entrance exams. In her second year, she met my dad. He was a young and pretty teacher. Almost all the girls immediately fell in love with him, except for my mom. My mother only thought about her studies. She didn't want to be distracted by such nonsense, like love. She had serious plans to become a great lawyer and earn good money. But it happened that my mom had to write a thesis, and my dad was her reviewer and consultant. She successfully ignored all courtesies from him, though it was difficult. After my mom passed her thesis perfectly, my dad invited her on a date, and she agreed. So their relationship started. Of course, they hid it from everyone, but my mom saw their romance as a temporary thing. Personal life and long-term relationships weren't in her plans. She wanted to get an education, go to Europe for an internship, and maybe stay there to live and work forever. She liked Germany and Austria. When my mom found out she was pregnant, she was horrified. The kid was definitely not included in her plans. She told my dad about it, thinking he would support her in her intention to get rid of the kid. On the contrary, he was very happy and said that they should get married and become a real family. In addition, during the examination at the hospital, the doctors told my mom it was almost a miracle she managed to get pregnant. It turned out she had some health problems. So, if she decided to get rid of the kid, she would never be able to have any more kids. Anyway, my mom had no choice but to have the kid, give up her own ambitions, plans, and drop out of real life for 2 to 3 years. My mom and dad had to tell everyone about their relationship. Of course, the university management condemned my dad's behavior, so he had to change jobs. But it was even better. He gave up teaching and became a real practicing lawyer. My mom was very jealous of him. I was born a healthy and calm kid, as if I felt my appearance wasn't desirable. Even when I was little, I tried to give my mom as little problems as possible. I slept well at night. I ate well. I didn't cry too much, and I quickly learned some new skills. At 2, my parents brought me to kindergarten, where I quickly got used to it, allowing my mom to take care of her life. She immediately re entered college, as she was still dreaming of becoming a lawyer. My dad worked, my mom studied, and I went to kindergarten. It happened that the end of my mom's education coincided with my dad's promotion at work. He got transferred to the international department. It was a more prestigious and highly paid occupation, but it also meant he would often be on business trips. And so it happened. For whole weeks, my dad would disappear in another city, while my mom was running from one interview to another to get a job. Unfortunately, employers refused her in most cases, and not because she was a bad professional, but because she had me. All the employers were afraid my mom would often take days off from work or go on sick leave because of a small kid. Fortunately, she got lucky. One company accepted her as an assistant lawyer. It wasn't the position she had been dreaming of, but she had to start somewhere. When I was 8, my mom found out my dad was cheating on her. It turned out during one of his business trips, he met a young girl and they had an affair. Mom accidentally saw their correspondence, but she didn't start a scandal. She just filed for divorce. Dad agreed. Mom didn't seem to be worried about her divorce at all, but I was very offended with Dad. I was a kid. I needed the attention and love of both parents, and he just left. Despite the fact he tried to keep in touch with me, I didn't want to talk to him. I was left alone. My mom decided to devote herself to her career. She disappeared at work all day long. Sometimes she went on business trips for a week. Mom hired a nanny to take care of me. She picked me up from school and helped me with my lessons. Sometimes it seemed I had no parents at all. After a couple of years of hard work, my mom finally got a promotion and went from an assistant lawyer to a lawyer. She was happy because her dream had come true. Having settled her career, my mom suddenly remembered she was still a young and beautiful woman, which means it's time to take care of herself. You may ask, what was my place in her life? Don't know. Yeah, she paid for my studies, extra classes, paid a nanny a good salary. Sometimes she asked me how things were going at school, and this was the end of her maternal care. When I started secondary school, my nanny had grandchildren, so she could no longer work for us, and I started to learn how to live an independent life as I was already old enough. Well, I cooked breakfasts, lunches, I went to school. I had different extra classes and sports training. Sometimes Dad called me. We talked. He no longer insisted on live meetings because he understood I had cut him out of my life. One evening, my mom came home from work and said we needed to have a serious conversation. I immediately started remembering what things I'd done wrong. But after all, my mom was never interested in my life. It was unlikely she would take an interest in my upbringing now. My mom said she'd recently met a man whom she liked very much. He was my mom's colleague from a neighboring city, and he was coming tomorrow for just a day. He wanted to stay at a hotel, but my mom suggested he stay with her. I said I had nothing against him, but it turned out my mom didn't ask for my permission. She admitted she felt Mr. White, that was the man's name, feelings in return, but she didn't tell him she had an adult daughter, thinking this would scare him away. I didn't understand what she was getting at, but my mom explained that tomorrow, when Mr. White came to our house, I shouldn't be there. That's why it would be nice if I stayed overnight at one of my friends. Apparently, noticing the shock and horror in my eyes, my mom promised she would pay for a hotel room for me. But I didn't get any better. I couldn't believe my own mom was kicking me out of my home to have fun alone there with a man. Having plucked up my courage, I asked her why she and Mr. White couldn't spend the evening at a hotel. My mom replied it would be a frank hint from her and she didn't want to rush things. Anyway, the next day after school, I went to a hotel. My mom rented me a nice room with good service so that I wouldn't need anything. But still, it wasn't my room, but someone else's. The next morning, my mom called me and said I could come home. A month later, I realized the relationship between my mom and Mr. White had reached a new level. Now, she went to see him every weekend. Each of his visits to our city ended up with me spending the night in a hotel. And then one morning, my mom told me that David, Mr. White, was coming for a week to our place. He already got used to living with my mom, so I would have to move out for a while. Getting angry, I asked my mom why she still hadn't told him about me if things were getting serious with him. My mom replied I'd already ruined her life once, and now she didn't want it to happen a second time. Her words devastated me. The first thought that came to my mind at that moment was to call my dad. Despite the fact I cut him out of my life, he was still my dad, and I really wanted to share my feelings with someone close to me. Dad listened to me carefully. He didn't comment on my mom's behavior. He simply offered for me to stay at his place with his new wife. After all, staying at home with family is better than a hotel. I can't say I really wanted to stay with my dad, but at that time, I wanted to make my mom angry. So I agreed. Surprisingly, my dad and Elizabeth gave me a warm welcome. They gave me a separate room in their house and surrounded me with love and care. My mom never asked how my day was at school. She wasn't interested in my academic performance at all, and my dad spent a lot of time with me in the evenings talking about me, my friends, my school. He drove me to school and picked me up in the evening from trainings. And if he didn't have time, then Elizabeth would come. I quickly found a common language with her and became friends. Once, we even cooked a cherry pie together on the weekend. You know what's the most amazing thing in this story? During the whole week I was absent, my mom did not even call me. She didn't ask me if I had any problems checking into a hotel. She didn't ask me what I had for lunch. She totally forgot about my existence. I was very offended. I cried for several nights in a row. After that, while my mom was at work, my dad and I just took all my things from our house. Finally, I moved in to live with my dad. As Dad later admitted, Mom immediately wanted Dad to take me with him when they were divorcing. But at that time, he and Elizabeth didn't have their own house yet, and he had no place to take me. And after I almost cut off any contact with him, my mom noticed my absence 2 weeks later. She called and asked me if I was planning to return home, because a hotel isn't so cheap for her. I said I was living with my dad, and I planned to stay there forever. Seems like she was even pleased with this news. Now, I'm getting used to a new family and a new home. Dad takes full care of me, as if he's compensating for our years of separation. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm needed and loved. My mom never calls me. I sometimes do it. Recently, I found out she was getting married. Yeah, she has seriously offended me. Still, she's my mom, and I'm happy she's finally happy. Would you be able to forgive your parents if you were in my place? Would you forgive your dad because he left you? Would you forgive your mom because she didn't need you? Or would it be better to leave for another country after graduation and forget about such parents once and for all? Type your answers in the comments below. If you've liked my story, click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications to see the new videos and stay tuned. Bye, everyone!